Hi there. I got Tara with me today. We are
Hey.
talking about the thyroid because we love to talk about the thyroid. We see a lot of people that are struggling with the thyroid. Maybe that's you, maybe you know somebody. And what we see a lot of is people who either suspect they have something going on with their thyroid. They've asked their doctor to please look at this and help them. And they were met with either, nah, we don't need to look at it, or, oh, we looked at it and it looks fine. We don't know why you feel the way you do. But in the meantime, they have a whole list of symptoms like their hair is thinning, they're tired, they can't lose weight, they're sleeping all the time, they're cold, they're depressed, they have joint pain.
Who wants to feel like that?
Yeah, constipation. Who does want to feel like that? Not me, and probably not you if you're watching. So that's where this is born out of. That's probably the most common thing we see is people that just aren't getting good answers from their healthcare practitioners, and maybe they've actually been diagnosed, and the only thing that their doctor has said was, "Here, take this medicine." And they're asking questions like, "Hey, can I change my diet? Can I change my lifestyle? Are there some supplements I can take? What can I do?" And their doctors are going, "It doesn't matter what you eat." And do you think that's true?
Yeah. What is so frustrating, and maybe they do know that they need to do something, but they don't give them the resources to do it. So maybe they say, "Hey, lose some weight or eat a certain way," but then there's no information on how to really step through that process.
Yeah, like I refer to that as like giving lip service. Is that what you're talking about? Like people, you go to the doctor and they say, "Lose weight and eat right." Well,
what does that mean?
Or exercise and eat less. What the heck? Eat
There's
less
a lot
what?
of ways
Eat
to
less
do that.
food, eat less calories, eat less carbs, eat less protein, eat what? So I think I think you hit the nail right on the head. Or there maybe their doctor's like, "Yeah, if you eat better, this will be better." But what does eat better mean? That you know, we know sometimes we need to eat better, but we don't know, we haven't articulated that. So we have some questions, and these are some of the common questions that we get. And so we have already hit the symptoms. What are some of the symptoms that people experience with thyroid disease? So for the sake of this discussion, we're going to stay with hypothyroidism, which is a thyroid slowdown. It's way more common than hyperthyroidism. So let's talk about that. There's some commonalities in both, and we can certainly help people with both. But I think more people that the hypothyroid or slow thyroid is going to affect more people. So let's start with that. We listed off the symptoms, like people are cold, they're tired, their hair's thinning and falling out. Yeah. Constipation, how about that one? Yeah. You see a lot of that too. Sure. Yeah, those are some common things. Even depression and joint pain, brain fog, those are some other common symptoms. Okay, could my symptoms be something else? So say you've been diagnosed with a thyroid condition. What are some other things you think mimic that? Like when someone is tired and can't lose weight, what are some other things you think of other than the thyroid?
So maybe you've been told that your blood sugar isn't regulated, or maybe you're told that you have liver enzymes that are elevated, like fat. Maybe you had a CAT scan and there was a fatty liver.
Exactly. So I guess my point where I'm going with that is that sometimes we've been diagnosed with a thyroid and we have a lot of these symptoms, but there's something else playing into it, right? So
the body's really connected.
It is. Imagine that. Can you have a fatty liver, blood sugar dysregulation, and thyroid problems all at the same time? Unfortunately. Yeah, a lot of times we see people, and it's not just they have one thing going on, but they have a lot of things going on. That's why it's really important. I think it's really important when you're evaluating someone and working with someone that you're looking at the big picture and not just like, hey, let's run a little bit of data on just the thyroid, or let's run just a TSH, or just markers in isolation, but you're really talking to the person, asking questions about their health history, and then also looking at what the contributing factors are, the person as a whole.
Absolutely.
So what investigations do I need to make a diagnosis? I think a good history.
Yeah.
I think lab data is absolutely, you can't, I always tell people, like, I don't know how to have a good conversation with somebody about their thyroid unless I'm looking at 8 thyroid markers. The 2 or 1 that they do on a routine thyroid screening, I can't even really have a conversation because it's really the main number they look at is a pituitary
I know.
hormone, not even a thyroid hormone. So now you just know what the pituitary gland is doing. You don't even know what the thyroid gland is doing. So I think good health history and labs. Those are the things that I feel like. How safe are these things? I mean, labs, the only risk is getting the blood drawn, right? So that's, is that, there's, of course, there's risk to everything, but I think benefit risk, that's a pretty low. Some people bruise or whatever, but if you hate needles, that's another thing.
Some people hate
Some
needles.
people do
but
hate needles, but
it's really helpful to get those labs done.
agreed. Okay. And then some of the other things that people can get into is if labs are outside of the norm, then we look at imaging, like things like ultrasound and biopsies and things like that. And those are a little bit higher risk profile when you talk about imaging, less so, but a biopsy a little more risk. Because they're cutting that open and taking pieces out and things like that. So, of course, there's more risk with that. But here's something to remember is if you're ahead of this and you're asking the right questions before this becomes a full-blown issue, then you have a lot more options. You might not need those riskier things if you're proactive and you're catching it on the front end. And so if you already have thyroid disease, how is it treated? Well, I think there's two ways. I think there's the conventional way,
Sure.
and there's
like here's your pill.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So here's some synthetic T4 thyroid hormone, Synthroid levothyroxine, something like that. And then if it doesn't resolve, then it's like, hey, let's knock off. Oh, the thyroid's going crazy. We'll just go and take half of it or all of it. We just finished up care actually with a beautiful young mama who she came to see us because her thyroid, they were telling her that she's probably going to have half of it removed. And she was really struggling. She believes, like we do, that God gave you the body parts you need, and she wanted to keep all of them that she could. And so she didn't really want to have surgery. And she was kind of trying to make peace with, well, if I have to, I will, but I don't want to. And so fast forward 3 months into care, and after we finished the bulk of what we were doing, she no longer needs surgery. They said, whatever you're doing is helping. Come back and just re-image that in a year. We'll make sure that nothing is, her nodules had actually shrunk in size by coming through care. And a lot of that is antibodies. That's what you're feeling when you feel those nodules, and they make it hard to swallow. And that's why they were talking to her about having some of the things. I see a comment here. Definitely agree. Keeping all that God gave us. Yeah, we're big on. Oops, sorry, our camera's falling over here. We're big on keeping all the body parts that God gave us. That's true in the thyroid. It's true in the uterus with hysterectomies and things like that. So we'll have a little bit of a technical difficulty here, but we'll regroup. We're doing our own IT here. We'll scoot over here so you can see us. We're just keeping it real, right? Okay. So do I require a biopsy? We talked about that a little bit, and sometimes they will biopsy if they're not sure what it is, and that goes to the earlier you catch this, the more options you have for treating it proactively. I'm a huge fan.
I like preventative medicine versus emergency or
yes,
chronic.
If it becomes an emergency, a lot of times it forces you to deal with something on a different time frame than you might want to do it. If you catch something when it's still early, you have more flexibility and options than like, hey, this is a crisis. We have to react to it and deal with it now. So let's talk about side effects of the supplements. So I think one of the biggest side effects of those medications, those levothyroxine synthroids, those synthetic T4s, are that they come at you with a big dose of hormone. And so all hormones work on something called negative feedback loop. So that means if I come and I flood my system with hormones, then I downregulate what my body is going to produce. So if I am always taking a big hefty dose of thyroid hormone, if I do that for a couple years, I can't get off that because my body isn't going to make the hormone anymore on it by itself.
Sure, your TSH goes down because pituitary goes, we don't need any more of that.
Right,
Like,
exactly. So then you secrete less and less TSH, your thyroid produces less hormone on its own, you're dependent on that. That's why if you've ever heard anybody say, oh, if you start taking thyroid hormone, you can never come off it. That's to some extent that's true. Now we have some people that are able to not need it anymore because they go back and they fix the cause and they take the right steps and they're able to retrain their thyroid to do what it is it's God-given purpose that it was supposed to do in the first place. So and you know, what are the side effects using supplements? Of course there's, if you're being honest, there are side effects to everything. You know, you can take too much vitamin C and have raging diarrhea. Or you know, there are some things like that. So yes, that's why I think, you know, we try to be real upfront with people and consider all that and think about that and present it to you so you don't have to know all that stuff because you're probably not a doctor. But this is what we do every day. So
getting the right doses and having some guidance on those supplements.
Yes.
Reduces the risk.
Exactly. And not taking, like some people are taking, they come to see us and they bring these bags and buckets and lists of 25 supplements and they don't realize they're taking like 10 times. Oh, by the time I add up all that vitamin D, boy, I'm taking like really a lot of vitamin D. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes it's not. How often should my thyroid be measured? Great question. Well, I think the first thing is to make sure you get a good, thorough investigation up front. So most people have actually never had their thyroid properly evaluated. When we look at it, there's 8 values on our thyroid panel. Most of the time, you're lucky if you get 2 by your doctor because of the way that TSH is the screening thyroid marker, but it's a terrible screening marker because the reference range that they use at the labs is so broad that almost everybody falls in it, whether they have thyroid problems or not. And it's slow to respond. If you have a thyroid that is being broken down and under attack by your own body, which represents 80 to 90% of the hypothyroidism cases, that's almost everybody falls into that category. It takes a long time for your gland to be broken down and for you to see that TSH number move. So first of all, start with a good one, like right now, if you haven't had one done.
Yeah.
And then I recommend, we usually, if we find a bunch of issues on somebody's thyroid panel, we will retest in 3-4 months time frame to make sure that what we've recommended and what we're doing is working. And then after that, I think a good comprehensive set of labs once a year is a good maintenance time frame, just to make sure that you're still on the right track, that everything's moving in the right direction. And that helps you avoid being blindsided by like, oh my gosh, I had no idea my cholesterol was 400, or I had no idea I don't have any thyroid hormone, or that no wonder I'm having hot flashes because fill in the blank, or oh my gosh, I'm pre-diabetic and nobody told me. So that avoids that issue, because that's a big pain point, is when you're like, how did that happen? So can a thyroid issue be reversed?
I love this question because
yes, absolutely. Have we seen it?
Yes, lots of times.
Yeah. Well, the medical community tell you that if it's autoimmune, they will tell you that once you have an autoimmune condition, it can't be cured or reversed. Now, we have seen that time and again, many times. Does it always happen that the lab work changes tremendously? It doesn't always change. We love it when it does and it improves and everything looks better. But a lot of times someone will feel better and maybe their antibody levels indicating that's an immune problem are still a little bit elevated. Those can sometimes take years to backtrack, but can their thyroid return to normal function and they feel better? And all the time. But it's not as simple as here is a levothyroxine or a Synthroid. It's unpacking, like, first of all, if you don't know what's going on with the thyroid, how do you know what problem you're trying to solve, right? So let's figure out what problem we're trying to solve. Then let's really get busy fixing that problem and all of its pieces. That is what we love doing. It's like picking that apart, and because with a good evaluation, you get a good set of the problem, but you don't just want to focus on the problem. You want to be thinking like, hey, I know that I have this going on with my thyroid, but I don't feel good. So how do I get from, all these lab ranges out of balance to, I feel like myself again. I can hang out with my kids. I can, Tara and I, right now, we are coaching junior high cross country team.
So
and I was thinking last night, just how blessed and thankful I am that I feel good enough now. Most of these kids can beat me running because they're
12.
Yeah, and 13, and my son for sure like smokes me every time we run. But I can still get out there with junior high kids and run in the middle of the pack, and I'm just so thankful and grateful. Like, that's my heart, and I want, whenever it is, maybe you don't want to run a mile or 2 miles with your cross country kiddos, but you want to be able to have the stamina to watch them play basketball or soccer, or you just want to be able to get out of bed in the morning and feel good, or go and be the room mom at school, or whatever it is that makes your heart happy. Play the piano, whatever that is. We want that for you. So I hope that you found this video helpful. Share it with your friends. Connect with us. There's a bio link in the comments. So we have blog and podcast, and this free Q&A group. If you're not watching on inside the Q&A group, we have a free Q&A group where we can interact more, and just we're doing a lot more inside that group because we just feel like we can focus all of our energy on putting a lot of value there. But and then if you want to connect on a call where we talk to you and listen, and you're thinking like, I want to maybe have some of these labs around or ask questions about that, that's called a free discovery call, and that link is in there as well. So any other last minute words on the thyroid or thoughts on that?
I would say if there was one thing that we could do, that we could change right now, I'll ask it in a question. What do you think it would be? Like 1 or 2 things they could do today for the thyroid.
My favorite thyroid hack is giving up gluten.
That's what I was thinking too.
Great minds think alike. So if you have been told you have a thyroid problem, suspect you have a thyroid problem, do us a favor and give yourself a little trial and see if you don't feel better without gluten. There's a big scientific reason for that. On the autoimmunity side, there's a protein in gluten that looks very much like the thyroid. So if you have a raging autoimmune breakdown of the thyroid, then you want to avoid things that are going to trigger that. And one of the things is gluten. So
there you go. You heard it.
That's one thing to do.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week talking about something else. So join us in about a week for the next one.